afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Erin Meyer. I'm the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator here at the University of California, Merced. Today, we're here to talk to Lizzy from Clemson, all about sustainability and what it's like in higher ed and a variety of other topics. I want to give it over to Guillermo real quick to introduce himself as well as provide any background he would like, and then we can take it away. Go for it, Guillermo.
Hi, thank you, Erin. Hello, everyone. I'm Guillermo Ortiz. I'm the Sustainability and Diversity Educational Programs Manager here at UC Merced. And Erin and I started this AMA series to get a broader perspective into different parts of the sustainability field, hear from a lot of different perspectives and folks from not only our local community in California, but from folks all over the country. So with that being said, Lizzy, thank you so much for being our AMA guest today, and I'll let you introduce yourself further. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lizzy Anast, and I am the Sustainability Coordinator for Clemson University, and I am housed within facilities. So I mostly look at waste diversion on campus, which is anything being, recycled or composted. We're trying to increase those numbers.
Excellent. So what are your major goals for Clemson from a sustainability standpoint?
Yeah, like I said, I'm mostly waste diversion. So for me, I want to increase the amount of composting and recycling that's happening on campus. And I'm planning on doing that through education of students, of faculty, of custodial staff, and ideally we've been sitting around like 50 to 55% diversion rate, and we would like to get that more to 60 or 65%.
Excellent. So how do you intend on engaging folks? We at the university always have a hard time trying to figure that out and just increase engagement, not just in sustainability programs, but in some of my food programs. So do you have any creative plans or anything like that? What's your main tactic?
Yeah, so for me, I believe in kind of slow cultural changes where people aren't just doing things or recycling to check a box. They're doing it because they genuinely buy in to waste diversion. So we've been doing, me and some of my operations staff have been doing trainings with the custodial staff, with the kitchen staff, to kind of give them a holistic view of our recycling and composting on campus so they can kind of understand the why behind everything. And then we're also, I believe that football, I think Anita's having issues, but, oh, she can hear me. Okay. But I think that football, because football is so outward facing, I think that's a really good opportunity to get more people involved in waste diversion. So, and on top of that, football produces, like, the 7 home games per year produce 1/3 of all campus waste for the entire year, which is just crazy. But so that's a really big area where you can kind of engage students and fans and alumni and, faculty and staff as well, to kind of get people to buy into the fact that, okay, Clemson, first of all, we have our own recycling and composting facility on site, which is rare for a university to have that. And so we just kind of want to get the word out. So one of the things we're doing is we got these like yellow, like something like this, but smaller, like a hydro flask type thing. And we're doing this activation called Caught Green-Handed, where we're running up to someone who we see recycling, like shouting, playing like an air horn, and saying, congratulations, like you recycled, here's a prize, we really appreciate it. And then we would take a video of that and post it on our social media and like run away. So it's chaotic and people are like, oh, look, I got this cool thing for recycling. So maybe I should do that more. And we think that's a really fun way to engage students.
I love that. Guillermo, let's do something like that for sure.
Yeah. And I heard about that idea. Hallie Bovia, who was doing sustainability, she works for a private company now, but I believe she was at USC for a few years, and she was the one who kind of gave me that idea. They did something similar where they had someone dressed in like all green and someone who would play like a little trumpet fanfare and then like throw like leaf confetti or something and run away. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah, because in the research it shows that if you can't shame people into these behaviors, like it
Correct.
just doesn't work. But what does work is stuff like that, like providing positive incentives. And I kind of just like the silliness of it too. It kind of
Mhm.
reminds me of like flash mobs and like guerrilla advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, so we haven't got the mugs in yet. Supply chain issues, that's everything. But we're really excited to do that campaign. And I know if like even now as a 27-year-old, I would think that's fun. But as a college student, I would have been like, is there anyone, like when I'm recycling, I would have been like, is there anyone around? Where are the caught green-handed people?
I love that. You should tag us in that if you start doing it on Instagram. I would love
Yeah,
to.
we will. Whenever we get those mugs in, who knows when we'll get them in. But yeah, I'll start. I'll definitely tag you.
Excellent. Any other like fun tactics? I'm feeling really inspired right now.
Yeah, we don't have any other like exact things, but one of the things we're looking at doing next year for Earth Day that one of my interns thought of is having different student clubs participate in like an art challenge where basically we would start promoting this in January and then the final would be like during Earth Week, but having clubs come to Kite Hill, which is our recycling center, and just basically taking whatever they want from there and making some like art piece that then we're going to rate like we have different sustainability commissions and like different sustainability coordinators on campus where we would kind of be the judges, and then the winning club is going to get some monetary, like $500 probably, that'll go towards their club just to get like additional buy-in. But that's another idea that we have that obviously is a long term, but I think that is something that could be really fun too, to help get students engaged and get them to our recycling center, which is always helpful.
I love that. And I just like the idea of like upcycling. I'm wondering if, as part of the criteria for winning, is it not just like, does this look cool, but also like functionality? Does that play a role in it? Like, can whatever you're designing, it is more functional or something?
Yeah, that makes sense. We haven't really thought about it because yes, we don't want people to make these things and then just like throw them away, because that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. But yeah, I'm sure like there'll be some sort of criteria like that. But I know like Michigan State, again, I'm an alum from there, and their recycling facility is just absolutely massive and amazing. And they have a scrap metal Sparty that they paid an artist to come in and use a bunch of scrap metal to make. And then he's like, a Spartan like on a chariot, but it's made out of all metal. And they'll drive him, they park him at the facility, like at the recycling center, but they can attach him to like any car and we'll like drive him around and like park him at places. So that's fun too. Things like that I think are always fun.
Well, I like the word that you just used twice, which is fun, because that's the theme between all of these things that I'm hearing.
Yes.
From like these upcycling challenges and the guerrilla marketing sort of tactic. Because sustainability should be more fun. It's
Right.
not all doom and gloom, like recycle your trash or I don't know what.
The planet's gonna burn.
Right.
With the rhetoric.
Because like sustainability, it's a serious matter, right? Like climate change and all of these things. And eco grief, I could go on and on about that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
that's similar to like shaming people away. Like if you shame people, they're not going to engage in these behaviors. If you make it all doom and gloom, it's just not motivating to people. So
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I mentioned earlier about these like small cultural shifts. And I think that's kind of the best way to do this, because when you just need to get that initial buy-in. And I do think being in this region of the state or of the country, I think people are a little less likely to buy into all of that. But if you like make it fun, that's what you have to do. You have to make it fun. There's like, there's fallacies of arguments and like the rhetoric that plastics aren't being recycled anyway, which isn't really true. And you can sit and try to have that conversation or argument, as it sometimes turns into, with someone, but at the end of the day, it's like there's ways you can make it more fun, where people are like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do this, because like everyone else is doing it and it's not causing any harm. It's no like extra trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Erin, do you mind if I follow up on that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Liz, I was really interested in what you just said, right? Because I think it points to an important part that I think folks engaged in sustainability or climate change work should really keep in mind, which is, meeting people where they're at, right? I know a lot of folks, when they think of California, they think of, tree huggers and we're 100% sustainable, but, there's still education and engagement that we still even have to do even for a state that's kind of well known in environmental policy. And I would love to hear a little bit more about, like, what does sustainability and pushing for climate change kind of look like in the Southeast? Because, as we all have different climate impacts we're dealing with. For example, I know the Southeast, flooding from like heavy rains and heavy thunderstorms is becoming an issue.
Thunderstorming right now too. Like it's always thunderstorming here all
right.
the time, every day.
And so like we're all dealing, like here in California with the wildfires, so we're all dealing with our own local or regional climate impacts, but how we go about, communicating to our community can be very different. So I would love to hear more about kind of how you've been engaging with stakeholders both on campus but in the local community who are all important people to engage with.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I have a sales degree from Michigan State. I got a marketing degree with a minor in sales, and one of the biggest rules of sales is knowing your audience. Because if you have to kind of tailor whatever argument it is that you're making based on who you're talking to. So I'm also coming from CU Boulder, where I got my master's, which like people in Colorado call it the Republic of Boulder, because they really are like so their own thing. Every restaurant in the city is required to compost. Like that's just unheard of in most places. So like in Boulder, everyone's gonna be as sustainable as they can no matter what, just because it's so embedded in that culture. But the thing there is everyone is into water conservation. That's like the biggest thing, is conserving water, because it's in the desert. Whereas here, no, people aren't really worried about conservation. They're more worried about cleanliness and runoff. So that's one of the bigger things of like, okay, the reason we want to make sure that this material is ending up in either being recycled or composted is because we don't want like this leachate from the landfill to get into our water. Like there's so much water here. So that's one of the things. And just like keeping the planet clean, like there's lakes all around me and people love having their boat days, which it's like you don't want to be riding in your boat and having trash all over in the lakes. Like no one wants that. So that's one of the ways you can have conversations with people of like, okay, yeah, I get, like, you're right, things aren't being recycled, but wouldn't you rather it be recycled than end up in your lake or contaminating all of the drinking water for like 100-mile radius? It all comes out of Lake Hartwell. So things like that, just kind of knowing where you're at and who you're talking to.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a critical lesson, because you're right. I mean, we do engage. I mean, water is an issue here in California, but for different reasons, right? Availability and with the extreme heat and drought out here. So it's I always think like when you engage in this work, right? It's not one size fits all, right? Everyone interacts with the environment in a different way. They have different resources available to them. And on top of that, our solutions have to cater and meet people where they are. So I'm really glad to hear that philosophy kind of definitely follows through in your work as well. So thank you for answering that.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right. By the way, for those in the audience, if you have questions, since it's an Ask Me Anything, feel free and either put it in the chat or you can unmute on mic and go ahead and say them out loud too. We also had some questions come in via the registration link, so I can get us started with that. One person asked, what drew you to work in the sustainability field?
Yeah, this is a long story that I will just share. But so basically at Michigan State, I was a fifth year senior, and my final year was all like marketing strategy, sales strategy, and like basically the marketing strategy class I took was how to create a product for this one consumer class. And I was like, okay, but they don't need this product, so why would we like? And I realized that that's a lot of what marketing is like making these products that no one actually needs, but you know that they'll buy it. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't sell people things that they don't need. Like I am vehemently opposed to that. So I ended up looking for kind of other options as far as, grad school and different areas where there could be sales within sustainability. And I found this graduate program that I ended up doing through CU Boulder. In one of like the first weeks of class, I had someone named Dave Newport, who is the director of the environmental center at CU Boulder, come in and start talking about sustainability within the sporting industry. And I was like, wow, I love sports, like grew up. That's like what all of my family vacations are, is going to different sporting events, and Michigan State sporting events specifically. But I was like, wow, I didn't know you could combine sustainability and sports. That's like a dream. And I ended up meeting up with him, and he offered me a job as a graduate student. CU Boulder has what's called Ralphie's Green Stampede, which is the fan engagement team that's at all of the sporting events. So I kind of joined that team and was getting my degree along with being a fan engagement manager. And my program is a professional program, so we had to do a capstone project, which I ended up working with one other teammate, Eliza Mullen. She's amazing. We worked with the Green Sports Alliance to put together a collegiate zero waste playbook, which we interviewed a bunch of universities across the country. And we thought that we would be able to identify best practices and just kind of put them into this playbook. And what we found out, as kind of I was talking to Guillermo with, is everyone's doing things so differently because you have to. There isn't really any best practices. There's things that work or don't work for your institution. So kind of after interviewing, we realized we were going to just have to change what we wanted in it. So we tried to combine all of the fun, interesting, different out of the box things that all these different universities were doing. So that ended up getting published through the Green Sports Alliance. You can find it on their website under resources, but that's kind of how I ended up here, because I interviewed some people at Clemson, and when this job became available, my boss, Dave Vandevender, reached out and asked if I was interested in a change and if I was wanting to move to Clemson, which I absolutely did, because I think there's so much opportunity here to help increase waste diversion. So that's kind of how I ended up here. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's most of it.
Awesome. Where do you hope to go from here? Like, do you have plans for other sorts of exciting things, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my long-term goal is off the record. My long-term goal is to be kind of in charge of sustainability for the Big Ten conference, particularly like within sports. So I would love to like be more of kind of like a consultant. Like the Pac-12 has something similar called the Green Team, where they can help all the different teams in the league to be more sustainable. So like ideally I would be there, but I see myself being here for like at least 5 years, kind of increasing waste diversion, like I said, creating those cultural changes. It takes a lot of time to do that, but we have so much momentum going into football season. Like basically any time we've asked athletics anything, they've been fully on board. Like we're getting new recycling stations on the concourse. We are fully ramping up our volunteer program. So like I will have actual volunteers that will be helping to service some of the bins on game day, which we've never had that before. So different things where you can see that we have momentum, and hopefully that will just continue to carry and be at a point where now athletics are fully invested in this mission. And like I said, they produce 1/3 of the waste for the entire year. So getting them on for based like in 7 days, that's just crazy. So getting them on board is a really big way to increase our waste diversion.
What are some other major sports at the university? I don't really follow sports necessarily, but is it mostly football?
I mean, football is definitely the biggest, but like our soccer team just won the national championship last year, so they have a really big stadium. Like we have a big softball and baseball stadium that produces a decent amount of waste as well. Like any events that are bringing people onto campus, which sports in the South are just big. So I don't know the numbers for all of the other sporting events, but like I'm sure they all produce, quite a bit in the overall. Well, then you think that students aren't even on campus for 3 months of the year, so we're not getting very much material anyway.
Right. Excellent. So thanks for explaining all that. I wanted to ask real quick too. We're talking a lot about waste and a variety of other things. What about from a sustainable food standpoint? How are you looking to increase the sustainability within the food system at Clemson?
Yeah, so there is actually my counterpart. His name is Marcus Curry. He works for Aramark, who does all of our food preparation on campus. And their big thing is they try to source locally, which I don't have the exact numbers or what that radius is. I feel like it's 200 miles is where they try to get most things that they can. But someone's leaf blowing outside of my house. Let's ignore that. But yeah, so then we also track the numbers of the food waste because we're picking up all that compost. We have to weigh all of that and we're reporting those numbers back. And that's something that hasn't been tracked really super specifically. But what we're hoping to start seeing in the next few years is some trends of like, okay, in the month of November, students are stressed about finals or gone for Thanksgiving. So like we're throwing away more food. So maybe we should prepare less, during that time. And then food waste has a lot of different definitions. So like technically all of our food waste is being turned into compost, where there's some definitions of food waste that say that that's not technically waste. But if you look at what the UN, I actually don't know, but there's like a pyramid of food waste, and like really what you want to do is use it for human consumption. That's like the best thing that you can do. So there's a lot of donation that's happening. Like we donate food from the football games that doesn't get eaten, but there's a lot of legal issues with that, obviously for food safety. But that's something that definitely the university is trying to increase. And we're also trying to work on making sure that we don't have food insecurity on campus, which a lot of campuses do. We're one of them, but Marcus has been trying to work on ways where we can provide students with food or funding who, don't have the capability to buy themselves meal plans.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, the EPA hierarchy.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely in my area of expertise. So thank you. I appreciate you inspiring on that. That's great. I also wanted to ask and Guillermo, I know that you're traveling, so this might get to something that maybe you're thinking, but how do you embed EDI or equity, diversity, and inclusion into your work?
Yeah, I think again, like access, like trying to make sure that people who don't have access to food are getting food. And then I haven't really, so when you look at, this is something that I haven't really gotten into with just like this area. This isn't the audience that is really gonna care a lot about this information, but it's something that I did speak a lot more of in Colorado, is like places, landfills are primarily in lower income communities. This is just like proven. And I have a GIS map I could share to show that, or like there where there's low income housing areas, there's usually, you know, manufacturing centers or something that is creating high amounts of pollution. So when you look at recycling, it is an equity issue because everything that you're sending to the landfill is causing, you know, can be harmful for the people that are living in that area. So I haven't done a great job of really trying to incorporate that learning here on a broad scale, just because we're trying to get people to start recycling in the first place. But that is definitely something that I think about.
Yeah, so you said there's an application or?
So a map that when I
Oh.
did my playbook, there's like a map in there that shows like low income housing and then location of like landfill locations, and you can see that there's clusters. Because people don't have as much political power to say like, nope, we don't want this in our area.
Right. Interesting. I'll have to look for that map. Very cool. All right, in the chat, do you provide education / presentations to the students about how recycling works in their community, trips to the landfill, recycle MRFs, food banks? Where does their storm drain water flow that might carry litter / cigarette butts, etc.? Explain the bigger picture so they understand the why. Are the students interested in this or just the fun stuff?
Yeah, we actually have a lot of students who are interested in the bigger picture, and mostly it's going to different clubs. So we'll be asked like the graduate student, there's like a whole grad student organization that I presented at. We have a Solid Green Club, we have Tigers for Green Innovation, we have all these different clubs where they genuinely are interested in this. And then on top of that, there's students that just on their own reach out to get more information. So they definitely are, like, we do a lot of tours of our recycling facility where we are kind of explaining to everyone the process and how we do collections on campus. And then people don't realize that our operations team has hands on like every single piece of recycling on campus. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, it's not this glamorous thing. And I think when students really start to understand that, their behavior changes and they empty their Starbucks cups, so we're not getting like gross milk at the center. But definitely I don't handle any like food bank trips, and we have a whole nother person on campus that does really like stormwater. Her name is Haley, and they do river cleanups every year. And I know she's involved in a lot of education on campus as well, but she's a little bit separate from me. But I will say students are interested in that. It's just a matter of, we kind of have to like open the door and reach out like, hey, do you want us to come talk to your club? And students are like, of course, that sounds great.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, I want to go back to some of the other questions that were asked via the link. Let's see. There are a lot of ideas out there, but how do we make real change when it comes to reducing food waste? I know you kind of already touched on that, but maybe any last points?
Yeah, food waste is really insidious. And again, it kind of depends on where you are and what capacity you have to even like transport some of the food, and there's so many regulations on it. But yeah, I feel like real change, to me personally, I think trying to buy local, like local produce, things that are in season, supporting local farmers, like I see that as being the best way, because you're not supporting grocery stores, which are like throwing away so much food in the first place. Like I get all of my food basically from, there's a farm, like a meat farm that I go to around here, and then a cute little store that does produce boxes. But it's challenging for sure. It's very, there's a big web when it comes to food waste.
Absolutely. All right, I like this question. What are some of the most important hard and soft skills someone interested in waste diversion should focus on building?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of understanding the operational side of recycling is so valuable and important, because again, it can change from like county to county, city to city. Like the city of Clemson recycling is different than the university recycling. Not anymore, actually, we combined, but it used to be just like last month it was different, and a lot of people don't understand that. And that's one of the biggest issues when you're trying to get people to recycle more. It's so confusing, and there's all these different types of plastics and no one knows where they're actually going. Or like, for example, my curbside recycling, they can't take glass, but I can drive 8 minutes up the road and drop glass at the university. So trying to understand the industry, there's a lot of different information out there, but like for us, we look at DHEC, which they're the ones that kind of provide information about the recycling markets. And we're lucky in South Carolina where we do have a lot of manufacturing facilities. So products here are very recyclable because we have these facilities that are using like number 5 plastics, number 2 plastics, that we can send them there. But in other places of the country, like, you know, if you're somewhere else and you have to send all of your recycling 500 miles away in order for it to actually get recycled, then that's an issue. And so that area might say like, okay, we can't actually accept glass because we have nowhere to send it. So that's really helpful, understanding your area. And I think as far as like a soft skill, communication is so important. And like I was talking about earlier, knowing your audience and who you're talking to. And like, just for me specifically on campus, I have to communicate with so many different departments, so many different people that all have different goals. Like some people probably, for example, some of the people in football operations don't necessarily care about recycling, but they do care about making sure that there's no trash on the concourse. So we have to find a way to talk with them that makes them excited about doing recycling. But then on the other hand, there's some of the media rights people that have a new partnership where they're getting $150,000 from a company that needs our number 5 recyclable plastic. So like now you have the same group within athletics that is like, okay, no, we have to capture this material. So like being able to kind of bridge those gaps and say like, hey, listen, we have to capture this material, and like getting people on the same page is like, I think the most important skill you can have in this work.
Great answer. Okay, let's see.
I actually thought of another thing, hard skill,
No,
keeping track of the numbers, the data.
Thank you.
That's like so important, especially if you're trying to if you're trying to convince anyone, you like have to be able to show them the numbers. Like keeping track of that is super important.
Totally. That's kind of where I was going with that previous question about like, what are your goals in terms of like diversion rates? Because, you know, you can't just have a goal that says like, I want to recycle more.
Be better. We want to be better.
Yeah, like, of course we want to be better, but like how much better do we want?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally appreciate that. I nerd out on the data. I love data. We collect a ton when it comes to surplus food. So
yeah.
Thank you for adding that. That's really important. All right, from the chat. Our office is working on creating trainings or potentially workshops / presentations to encourage our campus community to take part in more sustainable behaviors. We are hoping to create an interactive format versus just a lecture. Elizabeth, I think you mentioned you were conducting some trainings with your custodial staff, etc. Would you mind talking a bit more about what you would do for the trainings? Is there anything you've done in the trainings that you felt was really successful? That's a great question.
I'm just rereading it. Yeah, so I would say specifically for custodians, we have what we call bridge trading. I don't know if that's like common throughout different universities, but it's like an online forum, and we did a lot of, so you click through it on your own. And the biggest things for custodians is understanding what routes, so we don't want them like putting out material on the wrong day. Like if we come by on Monday and they don't have material out and then they put it out on Tuesday, then it's like sitting there for a whole week. So basically what we do is we created this training where it's really interactive, so they have to like go on the screen and click certain things and like write in like what day did like are they picking up art, wasted art building, and they have to type that in. And the other thing is colored trash bags. So we do not collect any black trash bags. Like all the black bags go to landfill. So with that being said, it's very, very important for custodial staff to put the correct color bag in the correct bin, because if they're putting black bins or black bags in one of the recycling bins, we will not collect those unless, you know, there are exceptions, but for the most part, that's how it is. So like we would, you know, do the, what color bag would you put in this bin? And you have to like drag and drop the line to show. So different things like that, where it's not super, you know, fun and it's kind of a little silly, but I think it definitely gets the point across a lot more than me just sitting in front of people and lecturing. Another thing actually that's fun for more of like the community, we do have our tailgate. I forgot to mention this earlier, and we made cornhole boards. There's 3, there's a landfill, there's a recycling, and there's a compost. And then we have this like spinny wheel where they spin the wheel, and you know, it's like an apple core, and they have to like throw the bag into the correct, you know, bin, but it's like cornhole boards. So we did that at CU Boulder, and it was a really fun way to engage students specifically. I don't think staff members would be jazzed about us having them do that. If we're like at their 4 a.m. safety meeting, they would be like, no, we don't want to play this game right now. But that's another fun thing that we did too, that I think is interactive and helps people actually like now consciously think like, okay, I have this apple core and I know it doesn't go in these bins because I had to throw that little, you know, cornhole bag.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. How does manufacturing companies support healthcare organizations and professionals in being more aware of sustainability? I'm not sure if you can address that, but go for it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
No worries.
Sorry.
Right. No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure we heard in there from Fatima's question.
Hey, Aaron, I got one question I want to ask. So the pandemic presented a lot of challenges for waste on our campus here at UC Merced, and I was wondering what that experience was over at Clemson. So, for example, you know, we had a lot of food, for example, that was going into like non-recyclable containers, right, because of health concerns, right, about contamination, things of that nature. Did you encounter the same issue, and how did you kind of engage with stakeholders about decisions?
We were breaking up a little bit there, but I think I got the gist of it. But I have only been here since April, so I do not fully know. I like wasn't in the thick of it. But one thing I do know, one of the challenges that we're having now is the amount of material that was coming to our recycling center and our campus facility was obviously way down because there weren't people on campus. And now we're ramping back up and getting back to what our numbers were pre-COVID. And we have less staff, you know, because we had some staffing cuts that happened. And a lot of the staff is so overwhelmed right now and overworked, because it seems like, we had students move back and it's the first time having a full campus since 2019, and it's causing a lot of like chaos. So I think we're really working on just like trying to be patient, really encouraging our staff, but I know that that's kind of been the biggest challenge for us right now.
No, thank you. We're having similar challenges, so it's good to hear that it's not just unique to us.
Yeah, and we're working a lot to get more student workers. In Boulder, we had a whole zero waste team that was just student workers, and this was like, these are like coveted positions, these zero waste positions, and they help with all the events. So we're working to help build that out too, which long term will combat the staffing shortages. And I think the morale boost that you get from students helps so much, because a lot of students are actually passionate about it. They want to be there, they want to be helping. So that's something, like, we have absolute rock stars student workers right now. I think we have around 8 between actually working at like in operations and helping me with like marketing and communication side, and they are all just absolute rock stars. So that's something that has been super helpful to take some of that pressure off of the staff.
Awesome. So someone put this in the registration. I don't know what TRG means. Maybe you do, but I'm gonna put it in the chat. So how is the TRG administered? Online module question or in person? Do you know what that means?
I feel like that's short for training, maybe. I'm just gonna assume it means training and then the answer from there. But we do in-person trainings for custodial staff, but we also do online trainings through the Bridge program. I saw that Anna said that they're using their helping with their finishing up their Bridge training too. And I think that that's been really beneficial. And again, just like the little bit of interaction after hearing someone talk about it in person. And actually the other thing that we did that I think was really helpful was one of the people on our operations team. Originally, I was going to do all these trainings, but we have someone on our operations team named Jessie who came from custodial, and I actually had her do the trainings and present, because I felt like she knew the audience better and she truly actually understood. Like, I haven't shadowed anyone in custodial. Like, I know what we want them to do as far as recycling, but I don't actually like live their day-to-day life, and Jessie has. So I think that really helped, because people were far more open, I think, to like listening to her, and she was able to really relate to them and say things like, I know you have this and this and this, and you're busy doing this, but this really helps us out. So it was more of like, not me saying like, do this for us. It was more like, hey, we can help you and you can help us. So I thought that helped significantly.
Awesome. Thank you for taking a stab at that one. All right. What is your favorite part of your job?
I love that it's never the same. Like, sometimes I wake up and I get to work and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing today, because everything's always crazy. And to me, that's fun. I like having like a routine to a certain extent, but I love that I'm bouncing around campus all day, that I get to communicate with so many different people. That part to me is very fun. And the fact that I know I'm making a change, and these are trackable changes, again, this data. So that's exciting too, I know those are like long-term, but it's fun to know that, okay, I am making a difference. Like, we have so much momentum now within athletics. So things like that are always just fun.
Excellent. Thank you.
Actually, I have a fun story to share.
Oh, please.
About athletics. So they have these operational football meetings, and John Allen is the one in charge of that. And he goes through all of these core values at the beginning of the meeting. And these have been happening like every month, basically over the summer. So after one of the meetings, I went up to him and I was like, hey, John, like, sustainability is one of our core values. We've won the game day recycling national championship a few times. There's a lot of people that do work in the stadium and outside of the stadium. So I think you should add this. And he was like, yeah, okay. So I was like, he's not going to add it. And then the next meeting he did, and he said in front of all the, the whole, there's like 100 people at this meeting. And he was like, where's Lizzy at? Here I am. And he was like, she said that she reminded me that sustainability is a core value, and like basically said it to all of operations and football, which is huge. So that was like a very exciting moment where, and now since then, when I reach out to people, they're like responding so much faster to me because they're like, oh, John Allen said that Lizzy cares about sustainability, so we have to care. I was like, yes. So that was a big win.
Awesome. I love that. All right. How does recycling differ from place to place?
Yeah, again, I kind of mentioned this, but really a lot of it depends. It really depends on what your recycling facility looks like. And you have to know where your material is going in order to determine what should actually be recycled. And that's what's so hard as you at a university setting specifically, because you have students coming from all over the country who had all different experiences around recycling, and now you might be trying to get them to do something else. Or here really on campus, we collect, like we'll accept everything. So like if there's students that are coming from a place where they just never recycled and now they're recycling everything, and then they go back and they're like, wait, why can't I recycle this? So that's the most challenging, but really you just have to look at where your recyclables are going, and figure out what those rules are, and then proceed.
Excellent. What are the biggest roadblocks to increasing waste diversion on campus?
I think mostly lack of knowledge surrounding, like, where to put things. Because in a perfect world, everyone's putting their waste in the proper bin, and then we're getting it, which that's not happening. A lot of people are putting things in the landfill bin. But I do think it's just like education is probably the biggest issue.
Absolutely. How do we get creative and maintain our levels of enthusiasm and fun when we have new freshmen coming in every year, and then the other folks that we just educated moving on and graduating? That's going to get repetitive, and I know that you're all about fun. So how are you keeping it fresh?
Yeah, Kirk did a webinar on this that had some really interesting points. I'm kind of going to regurgitate those, but basically they were saying that as I just said, education is key. And when students first get to campus, they are so overwhelmed that, they're like rubber, like if you throw things at them, it's just like doesn't stick at all. So really what you should be doing is trying to educate students before classes actually start, like before they get to campus. So what we tried to do was set up booths at all of the orientations, and there's like a ton of different orientations throughout the summer, and we tried to set up a recycling booth where we were like, okay, like we care about sustainability, we care about recycling, we accept all of these different things. And then they would kind of spin a wheel. It would have like something on it, like a glass bottle, and then they would have to say like that's recyclable, and then they could win like a sticker or a sucker or whatever giveaway items you have. But that was what we tried to do, because there's been research that shows that once kids are actually on campus, they're like incapable of comprehending a lot of information. So I think that is probably the best way to try to help combat some of the lack of knowledge before it's too late.
Absolutely. All right, I want to also open it up for any other questions folks might have. Check in the chat if there were any others too. So final call. All right, I think we can wrap this up, maybe, unless Guillermo has other questions, with one of my favorite questions. And I think you're gonna have a fun answer because you're just a fun person. If you had a magic wand and could change anything about the sustainability field or the world in general, what would you do and why?
So I don't work a ton with food, but currently, but to me, making sure people are fed, that's like my biggest thing. Like I just think everyone should have the right to food. Like that's just a basic human right. And I actually have a publication where it's a Routledge handbook for sport and sustainable development, and I co-authored chapter 2, which is SDG 2, which is zero hunger and ways that sport organizations can actually help to end hunger. So if I had a magic wand, I would just end hunger. Like I just think the world would be such a better place. Like we have enough food to feed everyone. It's just not being allocated properly. So that would be my thing. I just think everyone deserves food.
100%. Totally. That is
Yeah.
so my answer. Like 33% of the world's food is lost or wasted, and people are going hungry, and it's not a matter of the resources, it's a matter of logistics and politics and inefficiencies and
Correct. It's because people want a fully stocked grocery store at all times, and no one can eat that much food. Like, so then it all gets thrown away. It's so sad. It just breaks my heart.
yeah, it's so complicated, and that's why I really love this problem. I called it's two wicked problems: food insecurity and food waste. So I'm really glad that your answer touches on that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up for the day?
I don't have any. Anyone can feel free. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Anyone can feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions or just want to connect on LinkedIn or something.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if you find that map, I would be curious to
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Yours might be, because I know that there's a few, like there's Cal and Biro screen, but some of these are just for regions. So was yours regional or like nationwide?
Nationwide. And I actually don't think I have access to the actual map now because I'm not at Boulder anymore, and it was on my ArcGIS there, but I can find the screenshots that we put in our publication.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. Thank you.
For sure.
Those visuals really help, I think.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. I want everyone to have a really fantastic day. Thank you so much, Lizzy, for joining us. This was really
Thanks for having me.
and, dare I say, very fun. So thank you all.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.